Hello, and welcome to this video about how you can use JavaScript and jQuery to create a headless blog using Oracle Content Management and jQuery as your front-end framework. My name is Preston So. I'm the Senior Director of Product Strategy here at Oracle Content Management. And it's my pleasure today to introduce you to our OCE JavaScript blog sample, which is the primary way that you can use Oracle Content Management as a headless content management system, or headless CMS, in conjunction with jQuery to build a powerful front-end framework-based blog. Before we get started, as you can see here, we've got a really nice GitHub repository already set up for you to use in terms of everything you need to do to get set up. And you'll see here that we've got obviously some instructions and some documentation. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing you're going to want to do is to clone this repository into a repository directory on your local machine. So we'll go ahead and do that right now. Oops. Let me just remove that existing directory that's in there. Great. Now we should be able to do that again. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and change directories to go into that sample. And as you can see, we've got all of our files now available for us to work with. Before we begin, let's go ahead and install all the dependencies that we have within this JavaScript blog sample. Wonderful. Now let's go ahead and open up this sample in the code editor of your choice, which could be something that you're using like Atom or VS Code, so on and so forth. Now, one of the things I'm going to do here very quickly before we begin is to sort out a small issue here that will be fixed by the time this video is seen by you and other developers. You won't have to do this, what I just did, by the time you watch this video. But the very first thing that we want to take a look at is underneath your src directory and your config directory, OCE.json contains all of the configuration that we need for access to our Oracle Content Management instance. As you can see here, this is the base URL for our Oracle Content Management instance. We've also identified an API version, and we're also identifying a channel token. Now, by the way, this channel token is sensitive information. It's a credential that probably should not be revealed to anyone else outside of your immediate team. And that's because of distributed denial of service attacks, or DDoS attacks, that could occur if you expose this channel token. So one of the things that I would highly recommend is to store this on your local machine as an object that you do not check into source control, or as environment variables using the .env library. This risk is, of course, mitigated if you are able to set cross-origin resource sharing settings appropriately within your Oracle Content Management instance. Wonderful. So before we proceed, let's go ahead and take a look at what we're building today. So I'll go ahead and run a build here. Now, this is going to generate a series of files that will facilitate our ability to actually see this in a running server. And once again, just making sure that we've got this correct. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and start the server that's going to house this particular repository. And what we'll do next is see what this looks like in a browser. So if we go over back to our window here for Firefox. Now, as you can see here, this is what we're going to be building today. So this is our Cafe Supremo fictitious brand here. And as you can see here, we've got several topics that fit into our blog. If we click on one of these topics, and by the way, all of these topics are coming from Oracle Content Management, that instance upstream. If we click on How To, you can see we've got several articles that are available. Both of these articles, of course, are being pulled and populating an article listing here. But if we click into one of these articles, all of this data, including the images and all of this text here, is coming directly from Oracle Content Management through the APIs that we're calling. Now, if I go back to How To, you can see that all of this is taking place through client-side routing, client-side navigation. So let's go ahead and take a look at the code and dig right in. So the very first thing that we're going to do is hop into the server config utils file. Now, this file is really important because it identifies for us all of the environment variables that we're going to provide to our server configuration. And the next thing that it's going to do as well is to use this configure JSON to populate some of this information so that we can later instantiate a new delivery client using our OCE or Oracle Content Management Content SDK. So I pull up services.js. One of the things that you'll notice here is we've instantiated a new set of methods here that allow us to actually use our OCE Content SDK to actually issue queries against these data within our Oracle Content Management instance. As you can see, we've got a fetch homepage method, which populates the homepage data. We've got a fetch topic method, which populates the topic page itself that we clicked on, that how-to page. We've got the articles, which are going to populate that articles listing. And then we're also going to have each individual article as well that we're going to use to populate as well, thanks to this client that we've instantiated. Finally, we're also going to retrieve some images and get a version of that image that is available within Oracle Content Management. Now that we've done that, let's go ahead and take a very quick look at some of the other things that are happening within this application. So the very first thing I'm going to do is take us over to the topics list page here. As you can see here, one of the things that we're doing here is using jQuery and our Content SDK to actually populate the page and render out some of the things that we have here, like our image rendition, which is something that we need from our Oracle Content Management instance, as well as some of the other things that we're going to need to append to the document object model, or DOM. Now, if we go into each of the individual article lists, which is each topic page, we can see as well that we're getting an image, populating that image and rendering it. And we're also rendering out some of the important things that we're going to need in terms of the articles that are being pulled from Oracle Content Management. Then finally, if we go to each of the individual article pages, we can see that there are different ways. There's now, for example, the author, which is going to be populating each of those author fields from the Oracle Content Management instance, things like the image as well, and of course the content that's being pulled directly from the article itself. Once this is ready to go, we're going to go ahead and actually perform all of the functions that we need to do in order to render this out and provide that information out to the each of the respective pages that we need to render. Wonderful. So one of the things that is really important with this is obviously we're using jQuery here. Some of you might be preferring to use other frameworks like React or Oracle Jet. We've got tutorials available for those as well. But for those of you who are still using jQuery, this is actually also a universal JavaScript implementation of a jQuery application. So you could also be performing some server-side rendering here and do some very compelling things within this application using jQuery. Wonderful. With that said, let's go ahead and go back to our page here and take a look at what we've built. So As you can see here, we've got our topics list here. Each of these are individual topics that are being fetched from Oracle Content Management, that base instance that we've identified. If I click into one of these topics, you can see we've got the article lists here. This is pulling from each of the articles that we have available, as well as thumbnail versions of the images that are housed within Oracle Content Management, and also managed as renditions within Oracle Content Management. If I click into this, you can see that we're populating the author information directly from, as well, the Oracle Content Management instance. This image is coming in as a larger rendition from Oracle Content Management. And of course, all of the text here as well is coming in directly from Oracle Content Management as a headless content management system. Once again, as you can see here, if I navigate across this, all of this is taking place through client-side routing, client-side navigation, and we're getting all of this data directly from Oracle Content Management. Wonderful. And that was just a quick preview of Oracle Content Management and how you can use jQuery and JavaScript natively to power your own Oracle Content Management driven headless CMS single page application using jQuery and JavaScript. Thank you so much for joining us, and keep on building.